Boom! Hello and welcome. My name is Ari Kaponen and I'm the education manager in Scandinavia for HeadBrands, where this is also streaming this day. And I want to introduce myself also to the Scandinavian audience out there in our local languages. Så hej och hjärtligt välkomna idag. Idag har vi med oss internationella gäster och det är inte vilka som helst. Det är de absolut bästa av kärnan från Reuzel som vi har med oss. Och ni kan ställa era frågor på era lokala språk och bara skriv det i chatten så kommer jag att översätta det till dem om inte annat. Så känner er hjärtligt välkomna och with no further ado, today we got with us George and we got support by Carrie. So George, let's show us some Reuzel love and show us all that you got with the tips and tricks. So, are you guys ready? There we are. Hi.
There we are. Hey, thank you, Ari, very much. Hello, everybody. Before I say hello to everybody, I have to have a special shout out to my number one. My mom's watching from Ohio, and she takes precedent over everybody. So, hi, Mom. Thanks for being here. She's always first. You know, you should know that by now. So thank you, Ari, for having us, everybody at HeadBrands. We have two ambassadors there as well. We have Hussein and Anton. Hope you guys are out there watching. And James, are you there? He's our EU sales director. So he'll be the one that follows up with all the wonderful education and products after we're done. So I hope you guys follow up and watch Emily. She did an amazing job. She did a David Bowie mullet, and in her amazing, you know, she's so damn cute. That British accent just sort of gets me every time. But she did a wonderful, wonderful haircut. And I'm going to be doing something. She did David Bowie mullet, which is so cool and so fun. But I'm going to be doing actually something that's much more classic Reuzel. This is my good friend Chris. In full disclosure, Chris and I are very close friends. We've been together for a long time, and both recently have had negative COVID tests. That's why we're not wearing masks. I was thinking about before doing this, you know, doing these classes and doing these things and having to wear a mask. It's so difficult to hear and understand what everyone's saying online anyway. So I talked him into doing it, and I did it. So we both got negative tests, so that way we can actually do a presentation without having to worry about masks. So full disclosure on that. What a pain in the ass masks are, though. I mean, we're doing it in the shops, we're doing it in the salons. You know, having to learn how to cut hair, you know, around a mask has been quite a challenge, and especially for, you know, like Chris with, you know, the guys have beards. I haven't done a full beard trim since March, for God's sake. So a lot of my guys are either have shaved their beards off completely because they didn't want to deal with them, or they've just gotten long and unruly. And fortunately, Chris likes his pretty bushy for the winter anyway, so it works out great for him. I'm going to just be doing just a minimal, a little bit of trim, and you know, we use a little bit of the new Reuzel Refresh beard line that we have for that. So without further ado, let me talk a little bit about what I'm going to do today. I've been cutting Chris's hair for a long time, and he has amazing hair, you guys. It's really, there's that perfect length on top. He has been a Reuzel user since day one, and you know, Chris is not afraid to use the greases. He's not afraid to use the matte products. He's one of those guys that whatever product you put in his hair looks great, and so I appreciate him being here today. We start off with a little bit of the hair tonic. I've already put some in my water bottle, so I don't need to do that. And we start off every haircut with wetting it down. Chris had we had shampooed his hair earlier with the daily shampoo and conditioner, and said he's a greaser. And you know, we've done the degreasing method. We've used the scrub, kind of getting it all off. But I really wanted his hair to be cleaner today for the demonstration. Actually, one of my favorite ways to cut his hair is when it does come in with the grease. That you know, we don't always get a chance to shampoo, and that's where the tonic really comes in, and the hair tonic, because it just starts to break down some of those greases. But you have that shape in there, and you can kind of start to see and mold exactly what is happening. And that's really where I want to start with this haircut, is that you're going to start moving and pushing the hair around to kind of see what it's gonna do, how it's gonna look, where the hair has to stay, and where the hair is going to come off. And we're going to start with, as we always do, whether it's Emily doing a mullet, or you're doing a classic Reuzel haircut from a pompadour to a flat top, we always start off with the baseline. So that's where I'm going to put that in. Right here. And it's something that, if you've never cut this way, it's a bit unusual in a sense that we're starting in the middle of the head. From when I started years ago, cutting men's hair, 25, 30 years ago, that's how old I am. We would start at the bottom and work anchor, pivot, suspend, up and off. And I was using a detachable blade clipper. I would use the Oster 76, the big heavy motor. And if I couldn't do it with the #1 blade and that clipper, I just didn't do it. So we've evolved, and now I use the Fabulous adjustable feeded clipper. And starting in the baseline, because the concept is actually quite simple. When you're cutting men's hair, we want to create squareness, right? That's the main focus of the haircut, is to kind of create a square, tall, linear shape. When guys come in after, a couple of weeks for getting their haircuts, 4 or 5, 6 weeks, and you have the consultation with them, the first thing they talk about is how it's getting bushy. It's getting bushy. It's kind of growing out through the sides. Well, that makes sense because that's the widest area of the head. So we want to make sure that is as lean as possible. So by starting in the widest area of the head and kind of creating a baseline, you're creating a template for the entire haircut. It actually you have the most control over everything that happens above that and everything that happens below that. When you're working and you're starting at the bottom, not to say that you can't do it that way. Of course you can. Our motto at Reuzel is that, this isn't the only way. We don't even claim it to be the best way, but it's our way. We found that we have great success when you're creating these classic looks with cutting from a baseline. So, often starting at the bottom and working up, you have to guess from the time you start at the bottom to here where your length is going to be. And often you'll kind of go in, take it short, freak out a bit. I've seen it happen, especially with the young learners, and completely back out. And what you created as a result is a light bulb, right? Which is sort of a shape that's very close underneath and getting too wide toward the top, because you're thinking that you need enough length to then transition from this area to the top. By starting at the baseline, we're working off a very flat surface. We're taking that bulk out, and we're actually cutting from that area down as opposed from that area up. So that way you have complete control over what happens underneath. So how you find that baseline, for those of you that are seeing this or doing that for the first time, is you have 2 flat planes that are inverted, and you grit the widest area of the head. And as you can see, hopefully, the parting that was created, unlike a traditional horseshoe, we follow this parting past around of the head and toward, if you follow your comb, the opposite tendon. So you take something that you know is to be straight, which is a comb, even though this looks like a curved line, you take this and you walk it, and it actually follows the natural curve of the head, and you have a straight line even though it's curved. So that's where we're going to start. I've been an educator for a very long time, and I worked with a lot of different companies and systems, techniques, having something that's uniform. having something that's repetitive, having something that you can do over and over and over and over and teach is, is sort of, really helpful when you're kind of doing this. I had the great pleasure of 7 years ago, before Reuzel even started, flying to Rotterdam and doing some DVD haircuts with Lane and Burtis. And it was, like I said, even before Reuzel started, I have had the great pleasure of being with those guys for many, many years. And Rob Burtis is probably one of the best men's haircutters I've ever seen in my life. And to actually be, pretty much over his shoulder and watching him cut hair was a thrill and an honor. And I've learned so much from him. And, if anybody that knows Rob, he's a bit of a rebel. He's a bit of a punk. He's a bit of creative mind that will do anything that he wants to do. And my job at the time was to actually write education. So I was going to take whatever he did and write it down and create an educational forum as a result of that. So from my practice, I'm right-handed. So I've always learned you start on the right-hand side and you work your way around, and then you get on the left hand and you work the other way around, right? And he did that. Then the next haircut, he started on the left side. I was like, Rob, why are you starting on the left? He's like, because that's the way the chair was turned, man. That's why I walked up to it. I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to go. Yes, that's how it's going to go. So I learned that it kind of doesn't matter where you start, right side or left side. It's just sort of knowing it, but yet having consistency all the way throughout. So I'm starting on the right side because this is the way I walked up to it. Baseline comes directly out at 90 degrees. The teeth of the comb are straight up and down. Here again, when I teach these classes, the first thing I ask my students are, what do you think we do for a living? And most everybody will say, well, of course, we cut hair. I'm a barber, I'm a hairstylist, I cut hair for a living. No, we comb hair for a living, right? The act of removing hair from the head, anybody can do. When my boys were little, they cut each other's hair. I've seen it done, it isn't pretty. Combing hair in relation to the head makes us the artist. Whether it comes out straight off the head, straight up, horizontal, diagonal, vertical, how you move the head in relation to the head is so important to creating the shape that we want. So the left hand that holds the comb actually creates the shape. This is just a method of removal, a clipper, a straight shear, a razor, broken glass, chew it off. I don't care how you remove the hair. That kind of doesn't matter. It's what you're doing with this left hand and making sure you're working in a very square and symmetrical way. So I'm working over the comb. The teeth of the blade are closed. Anytime I'm working over the comb, I want as much tension through that. So having the blade closed. As the head curves around, I'm making sure that I'm coming and not following the shape of the head, because I want to create as much strength through that front hairline as possible, but taking off that weighted corner through that baseline and following straight down and around. So baseline is done. Starting here, now I'm working this all the way through and following it to just past the center back. Now the next step is just below that. Now my comb goes in at the same spot, just lower. Now my baseline is at the top of my comb and I'm working straight down. Now here's where you have control over that. You have the control of either taking this flat, you have control over elongating it. In case if you wanted fenders, you wanted to have something that was much longer, he could swoop back to the side. I can go in through here and do a skin fade, right? You have complete and utter control on the entire haircut when you're starting at the baseline. With Chris' hair, because I've cut his hair before, I know we've done various lengths, and he's not afraid of going too short, but this is winter in Chicago. I had a whole line about, it's Fahrenheit 9 degrees here. It's extremely cold. We have a lot of snow. But then I remembered I'm talking to Sweden and Norway. This ain't shit compared to what you guys get. So I can't even talk about that. Sorry, Carrie, I swore, but I had to. Yeah, we don't know cold and snow like you guys do. So last week I was talking to a group from Minnesota up in the Great North, and same thing. I mean, we just, we got a foot of snow in Chicago, and to them it's just a dusting. So a dusting of snow and frigid temperatures. You guys aren't impressed. So be it. All right, so I'm working around. Let me get him spun around so that way we can. So you can see that my comb follows the natural curve of the head. I'm not putting in any lines that are not parallel to my parting. So I'm going to open up my clear blade just a little bit and do a little bit of freehand, just taper around the edges. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm putting in what we call our sketch. I teach a lot of the juniors and assistants at our salon, and I've been teaching them men's haircutting for a lot of years. And what happens often is that people can get kind of caught up in the minutia, right? You're cutting hair and you kind of want it to be perfect before you move on. And perfect, of course, is something that we all strive for. That very rare any of us get to it, because I don't even know if it's possible. But at this point, we're in the bulk removal stage. You're kind of creating a sketch to kind of get the initial shape down. Before I, finish everything off, I want to have everything below the round of the head, bulk remove, everything done, move up into the interior, do the transition, and then circle back around and then do all of the finishing work to it. So it's going to still use over the comb. Now, Chris has an interesting neckline in the sense that it grows sort of into a point in the middle. It's much higher here, lower in the center. And my motto is, I've never met a hairline I couldn't cut off. And sometimes that's really your only approach to doing a haircut when you're doing a classic taper or you're doing a fade of this way, is that sometimes you need to cut that hairline off and move over. My hairline actually back has a swirl on one side and makes a complete left turn. So to try to, put it in a straight line, try to do something like that, often you don't want to fuss with it. Just cut it off and start above that. But the trick is that I don't want to give him a bald fade. I don't want to give him a high fade. So it's giving him a very kind of classic neckline where there's mostly a lot of scalp coverage. This is the other thing too, is they talk that, there are some of these truths that happen that I didn't invent. They just, they're out there in the world as, distance equals length. So, head position is so crucial and important. The more his head is tilted down, when he puts his head up, you're creating graduation and so forth. Another one is light colors come forward and dark colors recede. What that means in hair color, if anybody that's a hair colorist out there, you're weaving sections through, painting highlights, blonde colors are going to pop. If you're doing that same thing and you're putting dark color in, the dark colors are going to recede. How that translates to men's hair is scalp coverage and scalp exposure. Skin is light. The more light you go, the more that's going to pop out. And often with guys that have a broader, thicker neck, you want just a little bit of a shadow of hair that kind of will slim that down. If there was a lot of scalp exposure up to this point, that's where your eye would be drawn to, is sort of the width and of that neckline. So what my goal is to take it nice and short like how he wants it, but also just keep a nice shadow of hair over the top just to slim that down. So I'm working with, now I'm kind of on freehand, open the clipper up just slightly and just fanning this off so that way it's not a, there's many ways you can do that. I actually use my left hand as sort of like a pivot on the clipper. So that way there's stability for that. So this is kind of my sable point, and my clipper is just fanning up and off that. You can use it one hand. Another way is hold their head down as well. We all have those clients that can't keep their head still. It's like their head's on a swivel. They're talking, they're looking, they're kind of going all the way around. I need his head to stay still. So one way is to kind of keep your hand on his head and do the fanning. Or if you know he's going to keep his head still, use your hand as like a little pivot point right on the side of that to just create a nice classic taper in the hairline. All right, we're going to move on to the other side. And it's more of exactly the same. You know, when Carrie asked me, I think it was the end of last year, maybe November, about doing a class for headbands in Sweden, I got very excited because I love to travel, and I was very excited about the possibility of jumping on an airplane and going to Sweden until she informed me that I was going to do it from my house at home, and I wasn't getting on an airplane. What a buzzkill! Thanks, Kara.
Thanks for making me the bad cop, George. I appreciate it.
Well, of course.
Can I interrupt?
Because we had such a great. Sure.
We have a lot of people watching, so I just want to remind everybody that if you have questions or comments for George, just type them in, and we'll ask him, and he'll answer them, and that will give him more time to talk about other things than me being a buzzkill. So, it's all yours.
But unfortunately, I will only answer them in English. Write them in whatever language you happen to know and to speak. But I will only answer them in English. So, all right. So we're going to start on the other side, and it's okay to use a guide from the other side. Kind of measure it with your comb if you like to make sure you get both sides even. So you can take it off and actually, measure on your comb. And then go over to the other side so that way you have exactly the same length. Here's another one. If your hands are big enough, and this is sort of what I've kind of learned just from doing it for years and years and years, is that when I talked about those big truths, another one is anchor point for stability. And basically what that means is whenever I can, I use my little finger right on his forehead or right on his head, because that's where I have my stability. So I can have finger here. So this way the comb is just sort of not floating out in space and I don't have control. I actually have my finger rested right on his forehead. And it also kind of gives me a guide as far as length. So there's consistency in the length. So an anchor point for stability, that stays the same. Now I'm just going to move it and follow my baseline all the way around. No, we had such a great time when we were in Sweden last time, Kara. Until we had to leave. I don't think Sweden wanted us to leave. We had gone from Sweden to the Copenhagen airport, and we were just getting ready to fly to our next destination, and they decided to have a baggage handler strike right when we were in the airport. So many canceled flights. Many hours later, we finally left Denmark, Copenhagen, and we arrived in Holland and Rotterdam to, of course, you know what's coming next. No luggage. And so that was, there we go. Let's twist it a little bit like that.
It's funny you say that, George, because Ari just said he would love to have us back in Sweden. So thank you, Ari. We're going to get there as soon as we can. And then, George, you have a question. Do you only use the wall clipper comb, or do you use other clipper combs as well?
Over the years, I have used many different clipper combs. This is the one I've kind of fallen in love with. Early in my career, I used the Champion or Hess. It was a big hard rubber comb. What you want to think about is you want something that's going to be about the width of your clipper blade. This wall clipper blade or clipper comb is about the width, because this becomes your guard if you're not using a guard. And also what it does have on it has a, you know, Wall's been in the clipper business for many, many years, and this is by no means a Wall advertisement, but they do have a nice ridge that runs through the base of the comb where you can actually set your edge of your clipper and slide it back and forth. So this has been my workhorse. And what I like about it is I have two of these, but I use a white one on dark hair and I have a black one on blonde hair. But this white clipper comb is the one I've used pretty much primarily since for the last half a dozen years or so. You know, it's all very, you know, your tools and your equipment are all very personal. And you teach a class and you have, you know, 10, 15, 20 people in the room, and 10 or 15 or 20 people, everybody will have a different comb. Everybody will have a different pair of shears. I mean, it's the most personal thing. So find something that works, that you like to work with and works best for you. And that's, you know, that's really the most important thing. Yeah, some of them have features that make your life a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, it's you know, can you get the job done with that comb, then use it. All right, so I'm going back to just doing a little more freehand around the perimeter, putting it up a couple clicks, keeping its head down, and just fanning that neckline. Because I have to say it, I'll say it, and you know, maybe you guys have all heard this before. One of the things that at Reuzel, at Scorum, we absolutely, positively never block off a neckline. You know, a tapered neckline, whether it's a classic taper where there's hair that goes all the way down to, you know, a high fade, we absolutely, positively never block off a neckline. You know, Scorum just celebrated their 10th anniversary. Congratulations, guys. Lane and Rob have done an amazing job with that, and they've had a lot of scumbags that have come through over the years, and now we have scumbagettes, some ladies that are working at the barbershop, which I think is fantastic and great. And you know, they come from all walks of life. You know, there have been, you know, there's rumors that they've gotten guys out of prison, they've gotten guys off the streets and kind of turned them into barbers, and you know, really kind of have launched them. And there have been a lot of great, actually, you know, guys that have left that have gone on to opening up their own shops in different parts of the country and different parts of Europe, and have been very, very successful. The surefire way of getting fired from Scorum is to block off that line. You can go to jail. You can come in drunk, hungover. It's not easy to work that way. Fine. You get reprimanded, but fine. Block off a neckline, boom, done. So you pack your scissors and go. So, you know, a classic tapered neckline that, still has hair and goes from no hair to hair in a very short space is a skill that you really want to master, because going up and creating high tapers and high fades where you're actually peeling hair off, as scary as that is in some ways, actually I find it to be quite easy, because you're taking this big machine and going up in a big space. When you're working at just around the hairline and you're doing fanning and you're doing, where you're going from no hair to hair in a very, very short space, that's really one of the tricks of barbering, and really the tricks of cutting men's hair, because not everybody wants a skin fade or a bald fade. So having a very low classic taper, in my mind, is one of the best looks. Anyway, I really appreciate a beautifully tapered neckline. All right, so like I said, I have to come back and do some more finish and detail, but my sketch is done. My below the round of the head is complete. Now we're going to transition up to the interior. My water bottle. So I said I had already mentioned about the baseline is your guide for the entire haircut. So now that we're moving up into the interior, I use the baseline as my guide to go down. Now I'm going to use my baseline as my guide to go up. Switch to my straight shears. Thank you, Kiyoshi and Mitsutani. I don't have the pink Berta shears, but I do have a pair of the black Mitsutani Score and Reuzel shears. These are my absolute favorite shears of all time. So now we're going to do a very interesting parting section that's on the top. In classic men's hair, you want as much length in the front as possible. So to assure you're keeping that, you part it off. You part it off and you get it out of the way. Also in men's classic hair is that you want to make sure you leave enough hair in the crown. So you part that off. Basically, you have three sections. You have from the apex, from the top to the side. You have from the recession area forward, which is the front, and from the top back, which is the crown. And I look at those as three very unique, special sections. So I'm going to start right in the middle with horizontal sections. So again, there's my guide from the underneath that I'm doing. Starting above the mid-ear, going forward. Crucial at this point is that, God love Chris. He's got an amazing head of hair and a very thick front hairline. I used to have that somewhere down along the lines, but it's gone away. So making sure you preserve enough hair through this corner. This is that. You can see in the picture back here in the back where it's all completely filled in. If you cut this area in that transition too short, you're creating a hole. So how you safeguard about that is that you're blending above the top ear, then you start to abandon your guide and disconnect. So you're actually leaving some length. You may take that off later, but I want to make sure I maintain that length so that way it fills in that corner as it goes back. So now I'll just take everything from the top in that middle section that will reach. Once again, over directing so I maintain the length of the front. Then I'll take that front section. Again, I'm really exaggerating to make sure I maintain as much length in that front as possible, so it's all connected. So basically from the front, you have a very square above the mid-ear, and then it slowly starts to elongate as you're getting toward the front, because that's the hair and that's the length that I need to preserve that corner from a profile. So I'll do the same thing on this side. Take the front area and just get it right out of the way. The crown, because what I don't want them is to have that smack to the back of the head flat look. The only time we really want to kind of have this area much shorter is primarily with the flat top. When you're taking a flat top, you're buzzing this all the way across and around the curve of the head, flatness here, then you have your length in the front. But with more of a classic haircut, like a pompadour that Chris is wearing, I want to maintain enough length through the crown. And maintaining a length through the crown also safeguards you away from wicked cowlicks and things that kind of, in men's hair that if you cut too short could really cause you a lot of trouble. So maintaining that length through there will save you in the end. All right, so once again, use my baseline on the underneath. That comes out at 90 degrees. I connect it above the mid-ear. And then just start to over direct to create a little bit more length to fill in that hole. Pull everything from the front now over to the other side to connect. And I can't stress enough how at this point, this is still the sketch. I have a lot of hair cutting that needs to be done after the blow dry. So like you're putting in the sketch, you're removing the bulk, you're kind of sectioning and joining the top. Once we blow the hair dry, then that's when the haircut starts. That's sort of what personalizes the haircut. Now I'm going to go back to this crown area, following the same sections as my baseline, just up a little bit higher. There's my guide. And then the last check that we do is from a profile. So, and the difference between men's hair and women's hair, or one of the many differences, is that women generally are taller in the crown and flatter toward the front. In classic men's hair, it's taller in the front and flatter in the crown. And often flatter in the crown doesn't mean shorter. Sometimes you need the length and you need gravity to actually swirl that hair down and comb it down so that way it creates flatness. Now I'm going to just join and make sure that we're going from shorter to longer toward the front. And converting everything from the sides into the middle. So I'm basically creating kind of a concave type shape. And by doing that, by pulling this hair from the corners into the middle, I get the blend that I want from short to long, back to front, but I don't disrupt these corners that I've created. That's very important because they're traveling such a distance. So my sketch is done. Now for the blow dry. What can I say more about this product than has already been said? This is hands down, I would say, everybody, Scambassadors, guys that score them, everybody's, go-to favorite blow dry. The grooming tonic is, we've called it liquid gold. There's so many different names that we've used for it. And, this could be a standalone, putting this in and using it by itself. It has a little bit of a tack. It's a great introduction. You have, especially I would say, in Sweden and Norway, I was been there, and you have a lot of very fine blonde hair type of clients that they can't support the weight maybe of a heavier, thicker product. The excuse me, the grooming tonic could be just enough. it's sort of the product that I would introduce to a client that, maybe has never used product before. It's the most user friendly. We have it also. I like just the feel of it in my hands and working it through. This also comes in a spray version as well. If you don't want to use it in your hands, you can actually spray it on. It's a good retail to have somebody take home. The blow dry. This is a crucial part of the process, because basically what we're doing now is that I'm starting to get more and more guys to blow dry their hair. I don't expect all of them to blow dry their hair, but I expect all their hair to dry eventually. So before he leaves my chair, I want to make sure his hair is absolutely as perfect as can be. So that way, when I finish the haircut, it's perfect. He goes on his merry way. Tomorrow, it's so much easier for him to style on his own. So by starting with the grooming tonic and also we use a vent brush, because what a vent brush will do is that it's meant to just dry it quite quickly. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear over this. And we do it in very specific steps. We start in the crown in the back. There again, we're not lifting to kind of create volume. It's actually a flatness that we're doing to kind of create the shape and just dry the hair. The vent brush will do that, but the only time I'll use a Denman brush or a brush that's maybe a little bit thicker is if I'm really having to fight out and pull out curl. Chris doesn't have curl that I need to do that. So we're going to work on just the way I cut the hair as well, blow dry. We're going to work from short to long, because I want to make sure that this hair is dry before I work in front. I don't want dry hair to fall on wet hair. I actually want to go dry all the way forward, so that when I finish off of this front area, it's going up over dry hair. I like using a concentrator. You don't have to, but the concentrator really positions the hair and pushes it in the direction that I want it to go. And I'll follow all the way through. I'll kind of use that blow dryer to create the shape for me. And as we get to the front, you can see that the blow dryer is kind of changing directions in the way I want to go. So down, back, and up. So we're just really following, using that air to your advantage. Now, the blow dryer is a definite tool, and it's, not haphazardly, but actually blow drying this with very specific intention. Now, this is not what we call a finished blow dry. This is a blow dry that it was just have to finish the haircut blow dry. And if it's really just haphazardly kind of gone through, I'm gonna have a much harder time to know where, excessive weight that I need to take out will actually live. So spend a little bit of time on the blow dry, and it'll make the rest of your haircut much easier, much simpler, and there's more of a visuality to it.
George?
Is that a word? Visuality?
Can you hear me over your blow dryer?
I can hear you.
There's a question. On a men's graduated haircut, have you ever gone back and cut the short side square to give it a bit more character?
And that's exactly, I think, the point of, that's a great question, to putting in your sketch, blow drying the hair, and then this is where you tailor it to the individual. There might be a time when you have to go in and take more hair out, square this out, but it's much easier to see after you've dried the hair than before. So that's an excellent question, and the absolute reason why we blow dry hair before we finish every haircut. So excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So from the side, you want to go forward and then back. So lean it forward. I think you get much more of an interesting profile when the hair comes first out of the hairline and then goes back, as opposed to being sewed back this way. So you can start to see the shape from a profile. And classic men's hair essentially is, the dirty little secret is it's one haircut. It's a flat top. Every sort of classic men's hair is a version of a flat top. The flat top is the shortest version. You don't cut a flat top for 6 months, it turns into a pompadour. It goes from short to long. So it's this classic shape that is, the important part of going from short to long.
While you're blow drying, George, I'm just going to put up a comment from Patrick. He says, couldn't agree more on practicing your blow dries. You can lose your shape by blow drying poorly, then your shape is wrong, and you're correcting the wrong parts of that makes sense. If that makes sense, I think so. Yep.
Thanks, Patty.
Where's Herb?
Thanks, Patty. Okay, so at this point, it said haircut is, not finished. Now I move into the blending shears. And this is what they are. They're blending shears. They're not thinning shears. They're actually used for blending and weight removal and creating texture and creating movement. So what I can see now that you couldn't see when the hair is wet is sort of where excessive weight lands. I don't know if you can kind of get in here maybe a little bit closer. I'll move my camera in here. Oop, don't look at me. Look at there's some weight that sits right through this crown area that when it was wet was completely blended and I couldn't tell. Now that it's dry, it's visible. And this is why it's important to dry the hair. So now I'm going to go in with my blending shears and start to remove the weight. And to that question that was earlier, so this is also the time if I wanted to square this out, lean this out, maybe even kind of go in with more of a skinned fade. You can see the shape at this point much easier than on wet hair. But you can see by spending a little bit of extra time to kind of create a good blow dry, it just makes this part of the haircut so much easier to see and to do, as opposed to something that was just rough dried, if you will.
George, may I interrupt again?
Please interrupt away.
Well, this is interesting from Dennis. He said, in the 60s, after a haircut was styled and finished and sprayed, they would use a net to place on the head to clean the little ends. Does the net come into play? It looked like a small tennis racket. That's crazy. I've never seen that. Have you ever seen that, George?
I have never seen that. But then in the 60s, I was just a mere child.
Shh. Shh. Be nice. Dennis, we would love to see that. If you can find a picture of that and send it to us, Carrie, Karrie, at Reuzel.com. I'll share it with George. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and then so now we're going to the perfection, the sort of the finish and the detail and the things that make this go from a standard pompadour to Chris's pompadour, right? That goes for that makes it tailored. Talk about there's one haircut, right? I just talked it's a flat top that's grown out that creates the shape from a flat top to a pompadour to a lot of things in between. But it's different on every individual because every individual, their hair is different, their head, the shape of their head, their growth pattern. And, you know, doing this now is what is turning this into Chris's haircut. This is the personalization that you do to make sure that, you know, every single person in your chair is not necessarily a cookie cutter, but you're tailoring it for them. And at this point, I just want to kind of go back over with just a little bit of my my edgers, just to kind of go around the perimeter. Ears, eyebrows. Like I said, with wearing masks that we have been in the shops and cutting hair around masks, this has been definitely a challenge. It's so refreshing to cut somebody's hair that's not wearing a mask for a change. That's done. Finishing off the edges. When you're working down in the back, there again, you know, where this sort of line goes, especially through here, you know, I prefer to kind of try to follow the hairline and go as straight down as possible. Chris's hairline gets a little bit weak through here, so it does have to come in at an angle, but it's not a bad thing actually, because, you know, he does have a broader neckline. So this is also kind of creates a slimming effect by kind of taking just the corner of these lines in just a bit. Because, you know, there again, what we do is create illusions, we accentuate the positives, try to hide the negatives. Let's see. There we are. A bit of eyebrows. I'm going to hit this with a blow dryer just again a bit. There again, just to kind of finish off. So that first blow dryer was more to do the haircut, and this blow dry will be a little bit more of a finisher. I love the way his hair looks with just tonic in it. Has a much more of a natural finish. It creates tremendous amount of volume. I mean, he has quite thick hair, but to be able to get his hair that tall and stay is really a testament to the grooming tonic and what it could do, and the importance of getting this piece forward and then back. No, but experiment, play around with different products. We had this great opportunity quite a few years ago to do some product videos for a school, and we used absolutely every single product on one model, and it was just a fascinating study of, you know, David had, you know, great hair, but it was a little bit on the finer side, and we would put in product, blow it dry, take a picture of it, and then rinse it out and do it over and over. And we got to see the effects of you know, each product on the hair. And one of the things that worked, you know, exceptionally well was the fiber gel. Fiber gel is one of my go-to products because of the extreme versatility that it has. If somebody has really, really thick hair, a little bit of fiber gel could be used as a blow dry agent, and that will get that finer hair to actually lift and stand. The fiber gel could be used as a finisher over the top. So again, to kind of lock in a shape, or the fiber gel could be used in a slick back. I mean, the versatility of the fiber gel is quite amazing. So, try the different things. Everybody's go-to, of course, is the grooming tonic, but try a fiber gel, try blow drying with some other things, and see what the effects that you get, and then see what works best. But don't discount the gel. Gels are not usually a blow dry type product, but our fiber gel absolutely is. Okay, Chris, pink, green, red, blue, purple. What do you think of today? Scum. He's a man after my own heart. Classic haircuts. Go for classic combinations. Here, let me get that out of your face. So the Tequila Scum Rise, water-based red for hold and shine, and then the green. And what's cool about these, you can mix these and match these in accordingly a lot of different ways. So, and they're going to give you a different effect. If you put the green on first, the green is a grease base that acts as an anti-humectant. So if you have curly hair like I do, I like to use the green because it's an anti-humectant, and then put a little bit of the red over the top to get the shine. You can do it in absolute reverse because often people don't like the fuss with trying to get grease out of their hair. So they'll put the red on first and then layer over with the green, and the red acts as sort of barrier between the hair, and it washes right out, and you kind of get the same effect. Or you can do it how I actually like to do it, is just mix them both in your hand. You take a knuckle of red and a knuckle of green, and it's just a great combination. Now, how you add product is very important as well. So I'm starting off with really emulsifying it in my hands, starting in the crown and going scalped ends to make sure that you're getting, because you want the lift, you want that hair to stand up and have some volume. So you need that product to go in from the scalp, in from the base, out to the ends. So often guys will put all their product in the front, have this sort of tons of product in the front, and then it'll dry toward as they get to the back. So really instruct them to take the excess in through the crown, massage it like you're going to be shampooing hair, and then work up toward the front. Because I like Chris, he's a friend of mine, I start with a wide tooth comb to help distribute the product, because at this point the product is pretty thick, so I don't want to yank the hair out of his head. So there again, combing in the way that we've cut it, short to long. So starting in the short area, starting in the back, and eventually and gradually incorporating the hair on the top. So you can see from a profile. There again, the left hand kind of does a lot of work. You're taking your comb and bringing it up to that hand and pushing and mashing and molding. My pick to kind of go in and once again distribute and lift. Carrie, how we doing?
Sure, you're doing great, George. Looks spectacular. Chris has amazing hair.
Yes, he does.
When you're finished, will you take some pictures for us from all the angles and sides and send it to me? And then I'll send it to Ari to post on HeadBrands' Facebook page.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Sure will. So, and this is when I sort of fall into a rabbit hole, because I can just start combing and combing and combing and kind of getting it, with the teeth marks and making sure everything is sort of symmetrical. But you can see as we kind of go in, especially through this area, by maintaining this during the transition, I've not created a hole. That whole section is filled in, which is really what we want. There we are. How are we doing for time? Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. I wasn't going to interrupt you. It's looking too good, and everybody is still with us.
Good. So if there's any other, and the last thing I'm going to do for Chris is, like I said, I talked about our new refresh. This has been great, especially for beards, guys that haven't had a chance to get beard trims and do different things, and especially if they're wearing masks all day. A little bit of there's a no rinse beard wash. So it has our patent pending top. You just turn it upside down and squeeze, and you get a nice foam. And massage through there. Has a great fragrance, and you don't have to smell your own coffee breath and smell your own beard breath underneath the mask. So it's a no rinse beard wash, the Reuzel Refresh, and just a little bit of the beard serum. You don't like a real shiny beard, but just a quick little dab of that to get some of those wily hairs to be tame. And we're good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much,
George.
Ari, and everybody in Europe, around the country, east, west, north, south. This was fun. It was great.
It was fun. This was great. Thank you, Chris, for being our model. A special thank you to HeadBrands for allowing us to take over their Facebook page today. We really appreciate you. You are an amazing partner, and Reuzel, we look forward to doing a lot more with you in the future going forward. Thank you, everybody that watched. This will be up on the page. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can reach out to us. And with that, I say stay safe, be well, take care, see you soon. Bye-bye.